Y pues estamos en la entrevista con Brian para que nos platique todo lo de Nacelle, motorratones de Marte y mucho más. Acompáñenos.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Basically, what happened was two things. One is a lot of the stuff we said we were going to do, we did. So now, so today we announced that Ryan Reynolds is doing Biker Mice. When we were here last year, we didn't even own Biker Mice. So we needed time. You know, we did RoboForce, then we did Garloo. So we were building. And then we were luckily able to get Biker Mice. And then we were already working with Ryan's company, Maximum Effort. And it just took time for everything to come together. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing that happened was, you know, so much of what we do feeds itself. So like the toys feed the cartoons, which feed the toys, which then feed the books and everything. And we needed that cycle to actually get started. So I guess it's actually only one thing, because the thing both examples I gave have in common is time. So even though when we met, all of this stuff to a certain degree was in motion, other than RoboForce. And actually, even last year in July, even the idea that we would be self-financing RoboForce and all of that stuff, that hadn't even gotten into my head yet. We at that time, the plan was always to hire writers, develop it, and then try and sell it to a Netflix or a Nickelodeon or something. So just the fact that we're using our business model from the documentaries and stand-up comedy on cartoons, this day last year when we met, I hadn't even thought of that idea. He is definitely producing and helping to promote. That's all I can say right now. But it was a very common thing. I was friends with this guy named Kevin I knew at another job. So Kevin left that job and went to Maximum Effort, Ryan's company. So then we put out a press release after we acquired Biker Mice from Mars, and he saw the press release. Biker Mice from Mars was Kevin's favorite cartoon growing up. So he called me and he was like, yo, oh my God, this is like my favorite cartoon as a kid. Well, we should do something together. And I'm like, don't you work with Ryan Reynolds now? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yes, we should absolutely do something together. So that's how it happened. So, you know, as with everybody, I don't know why I did anything when I was 3 years old, but my theory is that I was an only child and my parents worked a lot. I was what's called a latchkey kid. Do you know what a latchkey kid? Have you ever heard that expression? Mm-hmm. So a latchkey, basically I grew up in New York and I had a chain around my neck with a key. And that's how I opened the door when I got home every day. And my parents were never home. And it was just me. It was literally just me in New York. I had no friends. I was 3 years old. I was 5 years old. And I just played with my toys. And they really meant the world to me, you know. It's a cliche in 2023. But this was not a cliche even 10 years ago, let alone 40 years ago. But Optimus Prime was like my dad. You know, like, I mean, these were like, and again, that always sounds bad. Like, I had a dad, he was a great guy, but like, they really meant something to me. I truly believe my entire sense of humor, for anybody who would agree I have one, came from a line from Star Wars that Han Solo said in the first film. So it's like, that really meant a lot to me. And I can only think because I was an only child, it sunk in more than it would have if I had brothers and sisters or parents that were around more. I mean, that was with Toys That Made Us. I mean, the entire time we were making the first season of Toys, I literally couldn't believe it was real. I mean, the whole thing felt fake. like I was being punked or something. I mean, it was some of the strongest memories of my entire life, not involving my children or my wife, was from those 9 weeks of making that season. So that was the moment, really, when my hobby became a big part of my job. When we were shooting season 1 of Toys That Made Us, 90% of the company was making stand-up comedy specials. I mean, it was a complete fluke that I had been trying to sell the show for 7 years. It was a complete fluke I was even able to sell it. Then not only did I sell it, this company with this big old red N was the company that bought it. Like, I mean, it was all luck. Because the original RoboForce, I always loved their design because they were so unique. They never had legs, they had the suction cups, every single one of them had like their own gimmick. So I had a huge RoboForce collection. When we found out that it was available to buy the copyright, I was like, all right, let's do it. And it's funny, if you read the back of the box, which I swear to you, this is not a joke, I wrote that on my phone while like walking through the office from like one meeting to another. And like that's the entire plot of the whole show. So it really just came together like that. And it was like, I knew they needed legs because they, you know, one of the things people forget about RoboForce was it was a disaster. It bankrupted the company that made it, literally. And I think a big part of it was, you know, kids like to use their toys to be themselves, but bigger, you know, it's aspirational. So it was, you know, how are you gonna kick some butt? You know, hop, 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 like, so we just changed it to legs and yeah, it worked, I guess. Well, I mean, we're making more, so we sold out. So I guess maybe, I don't know if we were right or not, but we did sell out. It's a really good question and a really interesting answer. So in the 80s and 70s, companies, so inventors would create characters in a world, and then they would sell it to, well, they wouldn't sell it, sorry. They would it's called licensing. They would rent it to a CBS or a Fox or an NBC. Right. But they would retain the ownership. So 10 years, 20 years later, the rights had expired and gone back to the original creator. Right. Sometimes we deal, so like we got Biker Mice from Mars from the guy who invented it. Right. But other times, like with RoboForce, like I told you, it bankrupted the company. A guy bought the rights from that bankruptcy. And then it was like, I guess about 11 years later or something, maybe more, we were able to buy the rights from him. And so each one is different. Yeah. Like Garloo, we bought that from a guy who had literally bought everything when Marx, M-A-R-X, when Marx went bankrupt. This guy named Jay Horowitz bought everything. Like he bought the name Marx, he bought all their toys and everything. So he had it for like 20, 30 years, and you know, he's got more gray hair than me, and you know, he was like, maybe I'll let someone else run with it. So each one is different. So this is the beautiful thing about RoboForce. There's nothing, like there's nothing. They made one episode of the cartoon that didn't even get released in the United States until it was put on DVD 30 years later. So we just started from scratch and created everything ourselves except for the names of the characters. So the storyline we came up with, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy to a certain degree, we also came up with that. Like, so we were able to do whatever we wanted with RoboForce. With Biker Mice, on the other hand, you know, there's almost 60, actually there might be almost 70 episodes. There are very defined characters. It's a very defined storyline. And other than making a little, you know, modernizing it a little bit, you know, we're gonna stick with the storyline. So what happened originally in Biker Mice from Mars we're just going to recreate what they did. Now we're going to modernize it. That's going to be a little tricky, just to disappoint everybody, give you a heads up. Yeah, that's going to be a little tricky.
Oh,
But it's like, it's hard because, you know, I collect things for different reasons. So like with Star Wars, I only collect characters that I'm passionate about. So like, I loved Andor. But like, the weird thing is, in many ways, like, and I know I shouldn't say this, but one of my, within reason, like my least favorite character in Andor is Andor. But like, I love Mon Mothma. I love, like also same thing with The Mandalorian. Like, I'm not like some crazy Mandalorian guy, but I love Carl Weathers.
Oh, yeah.
So like every single Carl Weathers, I have the Black Series, I have the 6-inch, I have their reaction line thingy. Like, so for me with Star Wars, it's about the emotion I get from the characters that resonate with me. But let's talk about Robotech. I don't know anything about Robotech. I've seen like one episode, I thought it was nuts. I never watched another one, but I love the design. I love how so I'm buying characters, I don't know who they are, I don't know what their names are, but I love their design. So that shows you two very different, and I mean, my Star Wars collection is conservatively 500 pieces. My Robotech collection is probably about 50 or 60 pieces. So it's not small, but it's two completely different reasons for collecting two different lines. I want to say that if you know who we are, thank you for supporting us and for being kind to what we're trying to do. We are not experts. We've only been doing this for barely 2 years, so hopefully we're getting better at everything. And if you don't know who we are, please check us out on Instagram, the World Wide Web, whatever. The name of our company is the Nacelle Company, Nacelle. And check us out, and if you like what we're doing, stick around. Muchas gracias, mi amigo.
Y pues estamos aquí en Juegos, Juguetes y Coleccionables.